Good morning, Forefront. Before I go any further, and just because I have the mic too, I just want to double down on the offering and the opportunity to give to Forefront. This church has meant so much to me, and particularly if you're looking for a place to give, I say, why not give to Forefront? The Preach and Boot Camp program, which has me on this stage today, not only takes us through how to preach up here, some formatting. It's a multi-weekend initiative that's led by our Preach and Boot Camp deacon, Kelly, and one of our pastors, Reverend Venida Rodman Jenkins. And I am just grateful for the opportunity to continue to give a word, and for any congregant that has a word on their heart about God and standing up here. So consider it. And with that, we shall begin. In the human experience, where do we find hope? For me, the journey towards it hasn't been straight, smooth, or always obvious. It feels like a winding road, a trail that doesn't reveal itself until you've already been moving. It's an active effort of remembering, day to day, hour by hour. Sometimes I reach for it, return to it, and refuse to release it, while sometimes I put it down without a fight. In a recent conversation with my friend and mentor, Paul, he reminded me that I am a child of God and I am made in their image. If this is true, then we must be born with the ability to access hope, right? We get to be intentional, but like most things, it's easier said than done. Over the past few years, hope has felt like both a stranger and a companion. When I'm at my best, it travels along for the ride, but when life continues to throw wrenches in the plan, hope fades, and it becomes a battle between the rational and the emotional. Being laid off in 2022 shook me to my core. As an individual who defined themselves by their work and how they showed up in community, this felt like a betrayal, but I knew I had to go on. I learned to move with the emotions, and with the help of divine invitations from trusted friends, I found myself within projects that challenged system inequities, rallied for mental health awareness, and encouraged inclusion at every turn. Fast forward to 2025, where the projects have all but dried up due to the countless policies that dismantled or reconfigured initiatives related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. I find myself job hunting in a market that has cut a record number of 1.1 million jobs, and that's just through October 2025. Sparks of what's possible help fuel my dreams of next steps, while every denial chips away at a soul that is wavering. And when I originally agreed to preach, I had no idea that by September, my cousin would fall sick, and on November 3rd, pass away. Grief continues to shift my world, and it changes the way I understand hope. It changes how I speak to God, what I question, and how I try to keep going. Church, what does hope look like when waking up feels heavy, but you still do? How do you continue to access that spark of resilience that was placed in us by our Creator? In the meet and greet question, I asked, what is giving you hope? And I'm curious what some of your answers were. So in a time where darkness feels like it prevails over and over and over again, let's be out loud with these moments and reminded of the goodness. So if you're in the house, feel free to shout it out. And if you're online, drop it in the chat. But what is giving you hope? I think what makes me smile is the diversity in your answers. Hope doesn't look the same for each individual, or it's a one-size-fits-all. But like how we experience it, it's nuanced. In writing this sermon, I started with scripture, but was curious about the body. Why and how do we experience hope? Is it a feeling, or is it an emotion? Charles Snyder, who was one of the first psychologists to provide further context on the subject, presents hope as a cognitive model, which shows the interconnectedness of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. In his 1991 publication of the Adult Hope Scale, Snyder defines hope as a positive motivational state that is based on an interactively derived sense of successful agency and pathways, together which create and make up a hopeful mindset. Agency thinking, the belief that a goal is possible. Pathways thinking, the belief that a route exists to reach that goal. Snyder's Adult Hope Scale contains 12 questions and uses an 8-point scale ranging from definitely false to definitely true. While this makes sense in theory and science gives us access to a scale to assess our hopefulness, I'm just left with more questions. What happens when life knocks the agency out of you? What happens when the interconnectedness of our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors become too much to hold? What happens when you cannot see a pathway even if it exists? Church, in these instances, we must remember to come back to our Holy Parent and the Scripture. Though the tension that exists between our belief and our perceived reality may feel heavy, our Creator tells us to do not fear. Let's first zoom in on Lamentations, which offers some of the most widely known passages on hope in the Bible. Biblical scholar Adele Berlin states, Lamentation provides an indispensable witness to the catastrophic events surrounding the fall of Jerusalem and gives voice to the suffering of a traumatized community. Its poetic nature, which is said to have been authored by the weeping prophet Jeremiah, stands out as it demonstrates that some of our strongest hope comes from our struggle. Lamentations chapter 3, verses 55 to 57. I called on your name, Lord, from the depths of the pit. You heard my plea. Do not close your ears to my cry for relief. You came near when I called you, and you said, do not fear. In her book, Lamentations and the Tears of the World, theologian Kathleen M. O'Connor speaks to the noticeable shift in the verses as they progress from moving from outcries of pain to that of hope. In reference to verse 55, from the lowest pit, she states, the voice that rises out of the pit is the voice of a people who have been psychologically buried. Their cry comes from a place of deathliness, literal and symbolic, and yet it constitutes the beginning of their return to life. In reference to God's presence, verse 57, you came near when I called you. The remembered nearness of God, however fragile or momentary, becomes a resource for the devastated community. Memory becomes a means of survival. In summation, she offers that calling out to God is itself an act of resistance. Lament refuses to let suffering has the last word. And as I say these words, I'm reminded of every soul that is suffering this year, during this regime, and in this lifetime. Sometimes grief feels like a veil of sadness, airy and breathable, yet still altering my existence. Other times it feels like a vice grip around my throat. And yes, it's a natural part of life, but death doesn't feel fair, especially for those left behind. Kathleen said calling out to God is itself an act of resistance. So I'm going to yell and scream and shout and cry and question. And when my hope fades, it's too big to carry, just waking up, getting out of bed, calling a friend, watching TV, staring at a wall, or just surviving feels like resistance too. While Lamentation speaks to reaching towards God in your lowest moments, Luke chapter 1, verses 5 to 13 speaks to hope delayed, questioned, and spoken into existence even in the face of impossibility. We pick up at a time of King Herod's rule, unjust, exorbitant, and cruel. It states, in the time of Herod, king of Judea, there was a priest named Zechariah who belonged to the priestly division of Abijah. His wife Elizabeth was also a descendant of Aaron. Both of them were righteous in the sight of God, observing all the Lord's commands and decrees blamelessly. But they were childless because Elizabeth was not able to conceive, and they were both very old. Once when Zechariah's division was on duty and he was serving as priest before God, he was chosen by lot, according to the custom of the priesthood, to go into the temple of the Lord and burn incense. And when the time for the burning of incense came, all the assembled worshipers were praying outside. Then an angel of the Lord appeared to him, standing at the right side of the altar. When Zechariah saw him, he was startled and gripped with fear. But the angel said to him, do not be afraid, Zechariah. Your prayer has been heard. Your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son. You are to call him John. Zechariah and Elizabeth were righteous, faithful, and committed, yet still what they longed for did not come without strife. They were aging, waiting, believing, and possibly grieving dreams that seemed delayed beyond reason. I can only imagine the pain that they carried, yet still found the strength to hold true to their hope. Church, how often do you pray for that dream not realized and give up? How often does patience start to waver because a clear sign wasn't received? In these moments, God asks us to fear not, for our prayers will be heard. And truthfully, some days I'm Zechariah praying with faith but questioning in my heart. Other days I'm Elizabeth believing quietly and privately while life, time, and loss move around me. And some days I'm the one who needs to hear an angel whisper, "Fear not. Your prayers were not lost." For me, those whispers have been loud and direct, signs that a way is being made during the chaos, and I can chill for a moment. And at times they were soft and muted, subtle God winks that elicited a smile. But every time, they came when my heart was open. I didn't have any more thoughts left to rationalize. Church, what prayers have you stopped expecting answers for? What dreams did you bury quietly because they felt overdue? Where do you need God to appear and say, "Fear not, I heard you"? I wonder what it might look like if we reoriented to hope, changing our posture to the act of remembering. For some, that comes naturally, and for others, it doesn't, but the difference is the intention to look towards it. And because I love a list and a facilitated experience, here's a couple ideas to start. Remember through story. Ask yourself, when was a time I didn't think I'd make it and I did? Name that moment out loud. Tell it to someone or keep it to yourself. Journal about it. The act of doing so reminds us that memory is creating that hope. Remember through community. When hope feels thin, borrow someone else's. I am so grateful to the way in which this community, my forefront family, showed up for me during Terrell's passing. Texts, calls, a wreath that was displayed during his wake and ultimately buried with him, friends showing up to the funeral. The reality is when I couldn't hold it, you all held it for me. And again, I am grateful. I remember the strength I learned from my BIPOC Men's Healing Center community, the Man Cave, reminding me to stand strong in my power like a mountain amongst a storm, changing and transforming with erosion. I remember how I was held by my friend, colleague, and spiritual advisor, Tiffany Curtis, who on the daily sent me love, compassion, and rootedness for the steps ahead as the wake and funeral approach. God blesses us with people to do life with. Identify your community and lean in. Identify your community and lean all the way in. Remember through your body. Lean into somatic practices that allow you to feel that hope lives in you. Take a deep breath. Move your limbs or whatever. Feel your heartbeat. Our body is a witness to the gift of our existence. However you do so, just remember to come back to it. Come back to the hope, especially as these times continue to feel charged and difficult. Come back to the hope when there's joy, when there's happiness, when there's sadness, when there's complexity. Come back to hope at every chance you get. And even when you can't, remember that someone's holding it for you. Through my own exploration, I've learned hope is believing that the tears won't last forever, even while they are actively falling. Hope is daring to trust that God can make a way even when you cannot. Hope is leaning into community, although it feels hard. Hope is returning to possibility mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, even when everything feels uncertain. Forefront, what is bringing you hope? And more specifically, how will you remember it? Thank you.